Adam Ginning is a guy that had a good weekend, and the other guy, my name eludes me right now, Jason.
Ronnie
Sorry.
Attard.
Ronnie Attard comes back in. He's been here. So, you know what? It's an opportunity, again, for guys to show what you have. Is it an ideal situation? No. But, not a lot of this year's been ideal too, right? And they found a way to push through it most nights, and even found a way to take down a Florida team that absolutely dominated the Flyers about 6 weeks ago, if it was, and then the Flyers turned the script on a team in the second and third and just played an absolutely amazing 40 minutes of hockey. So yeah, this is a tough stretch, as you said. It starts tonight in Florida, heads to Tampa after this. And the Flyers are going to have to be at their best. They want to stay there and stay in the playoff spot, which I believe they will, regardless of this 10 games. That's my own personal feeling. But this is a huge way to start. And to be honest, people say, I hate to start like that. I look at it as a good benchmark. Get off against a good team. You know what the trajectory will be the rest of the trip and the rest of these slate of games. Just go for it. You can't set up the games the way you want them. We all would like to do that, but that's not the way it is. And Florida's playing great. It'll be a good benchmark game. It'll give a couple of young defensemen an opportunity to see what top of the league looks like. And for the Flyers, an opportunity for them to get back on the schneid, get back in the win column after that kind of downer game to St. Louis. There wasn't a lot happening in that game, and the shootout cost them. But this is a good opportunity, really, guys, to set the slate for what's coming. And perfect way to do it against the best team in the league.
Bundy, I know that obviously from a standpoint of playing defense, this is going to be a change without that whole pairing there. Curious your thoughts on how it affects the offense, though, because obviously transition offense has been a huge thing for the Flyers this whole season. What do these guys have to do in order to fit in terms of trying to drive that offense from the back end?
Get up the ice. If that's what you're good at, move the puck and jump. You don't want to. I always tell defensemen whenever you see them, don't lead the rush, join the rush. So this is an opportunity. Don't change anything. I mean, if I'm a young guy like that tonight, just come up here and play. Don't even think. Just go out and play. Move the puck, jump up if that's what your skill set is. Do what you're good at. Do what you did in the minors. There's a difference between the leagues, but not one that's so wide that it's gonna be disparaging for you. So I always say, just take minor league guys, come up and play. Just do what you do best and try to bring those same traits to the NHL. Sometimes it's easier playing up here because guys are more in position. That was a little while ago, but that's the way the game was. There was always guys said they couldn't play as well in the American League as they did in the NHL because guys were more positionally sound. But yeah, you know what? I don't even think about it. Just go out and play hockey and let those guys enjoy themselves tonight and get a feel for it. But don't be wowed by it. Go play. That's going to be probably the message that the coaches will tell those young defensemen. To just go out and play, guys. Have fun, enjoy it. Don't worry about making mistakes. We expect you to, and let's go for it and see what happens.
Yeah, and play fast. Sometimes you may not be the fastest skater, but you can play fast by your decision-making and the way you attack, and I think that's been a big thing for this Flyers team this year. Bundy, they have played this year 150 different D. It's incredible that they're a team that's in the playoffs right now. And tonight, with Attard getting in his first game of the year with the Flyers, he played some last year, and Ginning as well, I think we're at 13D that have played a game this season for the Flyers. I mean, I'm not going to put you to the screws here and ask you to name them all, but, I mean, do you remember Louis Belpedio?
I do now that you mentioned them.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mete played a game.
He was like playing really well and just disappeared the next day. That was kind of it.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes. And, again, like we knew beginning of the year, the Flyers would be trying to, a lot of patchwork and try to figure out a way forward. They didn't know that Walker and Sealer would have played as well as they did. And other guys stepped up their game. Cam York has developed nicely. So there's a lot of positives to the Flyers defense core this year. And now they're going to really have to figure stuff out quickly because they are there. I mean, when you take a whole pair out, and then you add in young guys, that becomes a tall order and tall task. So that's a lot of defensemen, Jason. 13 guys in a year, but it is what it is.
I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a team run 13 deep on the blue line and make the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's got to be a first.
Yeah,
That's
amazing.
You look at the grand scheme of things too tonight with this Florida game. The Flyers do look to get Travis Konechny back in the lineup, and obviously they've had some issues without him being there, but also at the same time, Tyson Forrester has stepped up and really looked pretty good. So, it's funny how these things happen over the course of a season. When Konechny went out, Forrester came back in. Now Konechny's coming in at a time where maybe things are a little bit questionable on the back end. So hopefully it all kind of evens out in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and again, they're going to have to find some offense. They don't want to go searching for it, but let it happen. And I think Konechny back in the lineup, that will absolutely help a ton.
That's one of those sparks just from his presence, isn't it? And energy.
It is. Yeah, knowing you got a guy back that's can score goals, make really good plays for your team. They should be feeling good about that tonight too. And you know what? If I'm the Flyers, man, I go in this game really loose tonight, like really feeling good about myself, even though they lost last game. I mean, that happens, but I really feel like there's been a good trajectory to this group. And again, tonight could be a tough game, but I think the better that they approach it with a good attitude and really a workman's attitude tonight, anything can happen. Anything can happen, but they're going to have a good start. I don't think I want to give Florida a 2 spot again. I think like they had last game. I think Urson was excellent, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Was it Urson or Hart? I can't remember the last start.
It was
but one of the goals.
Yeah,
it was
and he kept them in it in the first period until they decided to show up in the second and third.
Yeah, that was key in that.
Could have been 4-0.
Yeah, it could easily have been, and that would have been the game. So goaltending gave him a chance last game, and they're going to probably have a lot of the same here. Florida's playing very well again, and so they just kept coming off the road. But the other side of that is 3 games in 4 nights for Florida, and I think that's an opportunity. If I'm not mistaken, I think they played the Rangers, the Devils, and then they had a day off yesterday, and so they're doing that. So that'll be something for the Flyers to try to get on that team, and then coming back home after 2 on the road.
Bundy, does the trade deadline wear on a locker room? Most of the teams you were on, you weren't in sell mode. You were in buy mode. But buy mode also creates, are they buying somebody for my job for a lot of guys in that room? So it creates a little bit of anxiety and uncertainty. Is this the group we're going with? Who's coming in? Are they going to, mix in well from on the ice, personality, all that stuff? Is there a little bit of, drain on the locker room over this period of time?
There can be, because, you always hear it, and guys, there's always certain names that come out. And believe me, the players read that. They see it. They read Twitter like everyone else does. And, I mean, there's anxiety every year. I'm not going to lie. I mean, even I heard my name when I played, and it's not a great feeling because you like where you're at. You want to be in the same spot you're at where you playing and with your teammates. So,
and you lose control.
Yeah. Yeah. And anytime anybody gets moved at a deadline, you're leaving what you built to that point, whether it was good or bad. And, and like, again, like the guy the Flyers picked yesterday, right? Picked up in the trade
Johansson.
for Walker.
Yeah,
Ryan Johansson. I mean, you talk about having maybe the worst day you could ever have as a pro. That might have been it. You're on a Stanley Cup contender. I maybe have heard this somewhere before. And next thing you know, you're on waivers and you could be playing in Lehigh Valley all in a day. So those are the weird trades, right, that happen. And that's an example of one. Like Colorado said, we're moving on from the guy. We got to dump salary for taking on Sean Walker. And then there's guys you just love that people value, like a Nick Seeler, right? Like Nick Seeler's name was out there. And then he ends up being a guy that I know, from my years in there, you'd love a guy like that in that locker room, and they do. So you hate to lose a guy like that, but understanding that there's a business behind this also, that has to be that's very much part of the equation. And luckily in Nick's sake, because we do love him, right? Like he's a good hockey player. He plays hard. He's a flyer. There's a business angle too. And I'm glad the number made sense, and I'm sure glad he's here. But then with Walker, there's a whole different formula to it. And I'm sure that those guys in that room, like when there was trades, I hated losing guys. Like I hated them because you build a bond with those players, no matter who they are. And just like a snap of a finger, they're gone.
Poof.
And that can be tough.
No doubt about it. Let's take a break here on Flyers Game Day. It's the Flyers and the Panthers. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. It is Flyers game day. It's Jason Martinez, Chris Terry, and Brian Smith. Flyers Panthers coming up at the top of the hour. A tough task tonight for the Flyers, but still waiting on the deadline tomorrow. Bundy, do you anticipate any other business happening? A veteran goalie for a fifth-round pick or anything like that? You see anything on the horizon, you think?
You know what's funny with me, Jace? I totally kind of stay out of the whole trade element, like, because you could just start creating stuff in your own head. And I've tried to over the years, 30 years, try to like put the trade deadline to the side a little bit, because if you can marry the trade deadline to a point where you become a psychotic, like almost like where it's totally inundates your head. That would be for me one of the you hit the nail on the head because you're a smart guy. You both are. I would say a goaltender could be in play if it's not Kolosov. I don't know, but we've had Jonesy on, as you have, on Snow the goalie, and he's mentioned Russian goaltending pipeline, and so we'll have to see what that is. And I don't know, but would I say where they're at with Urson, and perhaps a backup? Yeah, I absolutely could see that happen. If something happen, I mean, here's the question I have to ask in the room, and there's nothing against Felix. If something happens to Sam and we make the playoffs, is Felix a viable option to move us forward in the playoffs? And the answer would be a resounding no. Nothing against him. That's just, you're asking a guy who's played marginal numbers in the minors to become Patrick Waugh. And that's an expectation that I don't have, and neither does management. So does getting a quality backup goaltender, if it exists, worthy of happening here? Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you ask the Edmonton Oilers, remember the first 20 games of the year, they would have taken a guy off a stump somewhere if he could have stopped, a beach ball.
They were trying to sign the Zamboni driver from Toronto, I think.
And that's exactly right. So listen, the teams are up against goaltending, and the ones that have it are happy to have it. But it's amazing how you see a lot of goalies that you'd never heard of before the last 2 or 3 years winning Stanley Cups, right? Colorado, Vegas, Aiden Hill, Kemper, Darcy Kemper. And again, we used to say, you can't win one unless you have Jacques Plante in there, or Marty Brodeur or Waugh. That's changed a little bit, but I believe you need a goalie that's serviceable, and certainly you as a group and management feel comfortable with having him between the pipes.
Yeah, at the same time, too, the Flyers might be looking to maybe add cheap insurance on defense, because right now it's just they went from 8 NHLD to 6, and then that's with the 2 they have up right now, and you don't know what else might be coming in that regard. There have been some talk of do they throw a low round pick at somebody to get just some sort of veteran D help, just to kind of make sure that Adam Jennings doesn't have to play the last 19 games or something like that. They do have a couple of veterans down in Lehigh Valley. So that could be another shoe we see. But I think whatever Danny does, he's going to at least try to do right by where the team is right now, that they've gotten to this point of the season, still in a playoff spot. And, if there's something that's not too expensive, that maybe just to give these guys a bit of a jolt heading into that last 6-week run.
I agree with you, Brian. And again, I think this team has just done too much this year. They've worked too hard. They've proved to the naysayers that, listen, we're a team that's willing to put the effort in and work. And there's been a whole change to the whole organization this year. And that's been led by the players. There's been a re-uppance to the fans and the community that we hadn't had for a couple of years. And that's been reestablished. But the players have earned the right to get to the playoffs. And that's why every single night, you can get 1 or 2 points, gets you that much closer with expiring games. This team deserves to make the playoffs. And it would be a shame if they didn't. It really would, because, there's going to be teams creeping up on them. As Jason said, we'll talk about it, that gauntlet of 9 out of 10 games coming, with, I believe, only San Jose maybe being the rester, the rest game in that sequence.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, listen, I as a guy who's far older than they are now and old enough to say it, I'm proud of what I've watched this year. And I'm proud of a lot of guys that maybe I haven't had a chance to tell them that, but they've played really hard and they've really done a lot of great things. And I'm looking forward to April hockey again in the postseason. And I think the team has got to fight for that, though. They're going to have to fight harder than they have before any time this year. And if there's one group that's proved they can do that, it would be this group.
Yeah.
And so I'm optimistic about that. And like I talked to Danny last week, and I think Danny kind of wants the message to get out too. It's a lot harder getting in than it is being in. And I have to, and I'm going to sell that because that's the truth. We've watched it, right, guys? We watched a team being on the outside trying to get in, and it was near impossible. Like, you almost have to win every single night because of teams
and then
playing
get help.
each other. Yeah.
And get help. Bunny, I brought this up on Flyers Daily the other day about trading for a veteran goalie with a 5th-round pick or whatever it might be, and some people commented and said, you're crazy. Like, why you don't do that? You keep that 5th-round pick. You don't do that. But to me, if that goaltender can come in and give you 4 to 6 quality starts and help you make the playoffs, I think what it gives you, like, first of all, a 5th-round pick, like, let's calm down here. You know what I mean? That is a literal Powerball ticket. The other part of it is the experience you can get a guy like Tyson Forster, Noah Cates, Cam York, Sam Ersson, all these young players playing in a playoff. To me, that experience, I would just give a 5th-round pick to somebody right now if they just guaranteed the spot in a heartbeat, because I think that experience is so worthwhile.
I agree. I mean, and like, you get a feeling for it. I remember my first playoff games in Philly. Like, I was a rookie, and I'll tell you what, we were playing, I believe, the Buffalo Sabres, and the atmosphere, the intensity, the difference in the play. How every shift matters, every period is so important. That's what the playoffs are about. And yeah, to give a guy that glimpse, the psychological glimpse of the playoffs, more so than maybe the physical one, because not a lot changes. It's more intense. It's a little bit more low scoring. Space is not as easily found as you will some nights. But really, the mental challenge of the playoffs and knowing what you're up against and coming back after a loss or coming back after a win the next day, and how you treat that situation. And that's why I want this team to make the playoffs. I want the young guys to have that opportunity to play around, maybe win one, maybe get to the next one. I think it'll get a lot more challenging as they move on. But who's to say something like that crazy can't happen, that they even win around? Look at Columbus.
Yep.
That team was a mess, and they ended up finding a way to beat the eventual 2-time Stanley Cup champions. Yeah, brought the brooms out. Yeah, brought the brooms out.
It is amazing. You watch the first round of the playoffs every year, and you can pick your teams that you think are going to win, and good luck. It's like the NCAA tournament getting a perfect bracket. It's very difficult. All right, we're going to take another break here on Flyers Game Day. Brian Smith and I will return with the opening lineups for tonight as the Flyers take on the Panthers. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.